The desperate called crystal spires of Zenthri Prime gleamed under twin suns. As High Chancellor Vorth stood before the Galactic Assembly, his 6 arms trembled as he held the data pad containing their civilization's death sentence. The Crethean Dominion had already consumed 12 peaceful worlds in their sector, and Zenthri Prime was next. Honored delegates, Vorth's melodic voice echoed through the vast chamber. We face extinction. Our people number in the billions, yet we have no warriors, no weapons of war. We are healers, artists, philosophers. The Cretheans see only weakness. Ambassador Quillex of the Meridian Collective shifted uncomfortably in his floating chair. Chancellor Vorth, surely diplomatic solutions exist. Perhaps tribute payments or territorial concessions. They want everything, Vorth replied bitterly. Our worlds, our people as slaves, our children for their breeding programs. We have 3 solar cycles before their war fleet arrives. The assembly hall filled with nervous whispers. Every delegate knew the Crethean reputation. They were bred for conquest, standing 9 feet tall with natural armor plating and razor claws. Their ships could crack planets. Their soldiers could tear through steel with bare hands. What of the other military powers? Asked Senator Tylan from the Vegan Republic. The Altarian fleet, the Corsican war machine? All have declined, Vorth said sadly. They fear Crethean retaliation. We are alone. That's when the chamber doors burst open. A figure strode in that made every delegate freeze in shock. It was bipedal but wrong somehow, too small to be threatening, yet carrying itself with predatory confidence. Its skin was pale pink, its hair dark brown, and its eyes held intelligence that sent shivers through the assembly. Apologies for the interruption, the creature said in perfect galactic standard. I'm Commander Jake Sullivan of the Terran Expeditionary Force. We received your distress beacon. Terran, Vorth consulted his data pad frantically. I'm not familiar with your species. We're new to the galactic community. Sullivan replied with a strange expression. Humans from Sol-3, Earth. We heard you need help with an invasion problem. The delegates exchanged confused glances. The small creature looked fragile compared to the mighty Cretheans. Senator Tylan laughed nervously. With respect, Commander, what could your people possibly do against the Crethean Dominion? They are the most feared warriors in the galaxy. Sullivan's smile was cold as winter. Senator, humans have a saying. It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. We've been fighting since we crawled out of caves. Our world tried to kill us every day for millions of years. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, ice ages, everything on Earth wants us dead. So we learned to be meaner than everything else. Your world classification? Ambassador Quillex asked, accessing his database. Class 12 Deathworld, Sullivan replied casually. Highest rating possible. Our gravity is twice galactic standard. Our atmosphere is corrosive to most species, and our weather systems regularly produce storms that could level cities. The assembly fell silent. Deathworlds were theoretical nightmares, places where no civilized life could possibly evolve. Yet here stood proof that something had not only survived such hell, but thrived enough to reach the stars. Commander, Vorth said carefully, what exactly are you offering? Sullivan's grin widened, showing white teeth that suddenly looked very much like fangs. We're offering to show the Cretheans what happens when predators meet apex predators. Trust me, Chancellor, this will be educational. The human fleet 3 days later. Zenthri orbital stations detected the arrival of the human fleet. What they saw defied their understanding of spacecraft design, where Zenthri ships were graceful curves of crystal and light, and Crethean vessels were brutal wedges of armor and guns. Human ships looked like mechanical predators. The flagship Defiance resembled a massive steel shark, bristling with weapon ports and sensor rays. Smaller vessels darted around it like hunting wolves, their hulls scarred and patched from countless battles. These weren't ceremonial craft or luxury transports. These were warships, built by a species that understood violence. Admiral Patricia Cross stood on the bridge of the Defiance, studying tactical displays that made her crew grin with anticipation. Beside her, Lieutenant Commander Marcus Wong calculated firing solutions while Sergeant Victoria Klaus checked Marine deployment schedules. Zen-3 Command is requesting communication. Reported Communications Officer David Park. Put them through. Cross replied, straightening her dark blue uniform. High Chancellor Vorth's image appeared on screen, his 6 eyes wide with amazement. Admiral Cross, your fleet is impressive. How many ships have you brought? 47 combat vessels, Cross answered matter-of-factly. 2 carrier groups, 3 destroyer squadrons, marine assault ships, and support craft. It's not our largest fleet, but it should be sufficient. Sufficient? Vorth's voice cracked. The Creathian war fleet numbers over 100 ships. Their dreadnoughts alone outmass your entire force. Cross exchanged glances with her officers. Wong chuckled softly, while Klaus shook her head in amusement. Chancellor, Cross said patiently, you're thinking like prey. Numbers matter less than tactics, training, and the willingness to do whatever it takes to win. Humans didn't climb to the top of Earth's food chain by being reasonable. I don't understand, Vorth admitted. Let me explain human military doctrine, Cross continued. We don't fight fair. We don't follow galactic conventions of warfare. We don't believe in honorable defeat when someone threatens innocent people. Under our protection, we become the monsters they fear in the dark. The tactical display chimed as new contacts appeared at the system's edge. 200 Creathian ships dropped out of hyperspace. In perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with fresh war paint. At their head was the massive dreadnought Bloodclaw, flagship of War Commander Thrax. There they are, Cross said calmly. Wong, signal the fleet. All ships to battle stations. Klaus, prep the Marines for boarding operations. Boarding operations, Vorth gasped. In the middle of a space battle. Standard human tactic, Klaus replied, checking her pulse rifle. Can't run an empire if all your leaders are dead. On the Creathian flagship, War Commander Thrax studied the human fleet with disdain. The small ships looked pathetic compared to his mighty armada. He had conquered 30 systems, crushed the fleets of a dozen species. These humans would be just another easy victory. Open communications. Thrax rumbled to his communications officer. Let me speak to their leader before we destroy them. Admiral Cross appeared on his screen, and Thrax felt his first moment of confusion. This tiny creature showed no fear, no desperation. She looked at him the way a scientist might study an interesting specimen. I am War Commander Thrax of the Creathian Dominion, he declared. You will withdraw immediately or be destroyed. Your pathetic force cannot stand against the might of our war fleet. Cross smiled, and somehow that expression was more unsettling than any threat. Commander Thrax, I'm Admiral Patricia Cross. I have one thing to say to you. Speak quickly, human. Your death approaches. Cross leaned forward, her eyes hard as steel. You picked the wrong species to threaten. We're not Zen-3 philosophers or Meridian traders. We're humans. We're from a world that spent for billion years trying to kill us, and we're still here. Today, you learn why. The communication ended, leaving Thrax staring at a blank screen, suddenly feeling very alone despite commanding the largest war fleet in the sector. First contact battle began at 14 o'clock ship time when the Creathian fleet opened fire. With their plasma cannons, streams of superheated energy crossed the void, targeting human vessels with practiced precision. What happened next would be discussed in military academies for generations. Instead of returning fire at long range like civilized species, the human ships accelerated directly into the incoming barrage. Their formation broke apart into individual attack runs, each vessel moving with desperate speed toward the Creathian line. War Commander Thrax watched in confusion as human ships took hit after hit but kept coming. What are they doing? He demanded of his tactical officer. Unknown, Commander. Their strategy appears to be suicide. But it wasn't suicide. It was human warfare. The first human destroyer, Wolverine, reached the Creathian formation with its hull glowing from plasma impacts. Instead of slowing down, it increased speed and rammed directly into the Creathian cruiser Darkstrike. Both ships erupted in flames, but somehow the human vessel kept fighting. Captain Linda Foster stood on the Wolverine's bridge as alarms screamed around her. Half her crew was dead, life support was failing, and the ship was coming apart at the seams. She wiped blood from her eyes, and turned to her weapons officer. "Stevens, do we still have forward guns?" "Barely, Captain. Hull breach on deck 4. Fire on deck 7. Good enough. Target their bridge section. Maximum firepower." The dying destroyer's remaining weapons punched through the Crethean cruisers' armor, turning its command center into expanding plasma. Both ships died together, locked in a final embrace of mutual destruction. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human ships that should have retreated kept fighting. Crews that should have surrendered rammed enemy vessels. Marines in powered armor crossed open space between burning hulks to board Crethean ships. Aboard the Bloodclaw, Thrax felt something he had never experienced before: fear. His forces were winning in terms of ship numbers, but the humans fought like rabid animals. They showed no regard for their own lives, no concept of tactical withdrawal. "Commander," his aide reported nervously, "we're receiving boarding alerts from 12 ships. The humans are inside our hulls. Impossible. No species boards ships during active combat." But the reports kept coming. Human Marines were cutting through airlocks, fighting in corridors, targeting command centers and engine rooms. They moved through Crethean ships like viruses, small and deadly. Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez led his squad through the corridors of the Crethean heavy cruiser Ravager. His power armor was scarred from plasma hits. His rifle was running low on ammunition. But his mission was clear: take the ship or die trying. "Movement ahead," whispered Corporal Jana Miller over the comm. 3 Crethean warriors rounded the corner, their natural armor gleaming under the ship's emergency lighting. Each stood 9 feet tall with razor claws and fangs. They should have been terrifying. Rodriguez smiled grimly. "Gentlemen, meet your new nightmare." The firefight lasted 30 seconds. When the smoke cleared, the Cretheans were dead and the humans were still moving forward. They had learned long ago that size meant nothing if you knew where to aim. Back on the Zenthri orbital station, High Chancellor Vorth watched the battle in stunned silence. His people had expected the humans to die bravely, but quickly. Instead, they were watching the impossible. A smaller force was winning through sheer audacity and skill. How he whispered to his aide. "How are they doing this?" His aide, a young Zenthri named Keth, had been studying human cultural data since their arrival. "Chancellor, I've been reading their military history. They've been fighting each other for their entire existence. Wars that lasted decades, battles that killed millions. They know violence in ways we cannot comprehend." On screen, another human ship rammed a Crethean dreadnought while broadcasting something on all frequencies. It was music, wild and violent and strangely beautiful. Human war songs. Vorth finally understood. The humans weren't just fighting the Cretheans, they were hunting them. The tide turns by our 3 of the battle. War Commander Thrax's perfect battle plan had collapsed into chaos. His fleet, which had conquered 30 systems through overwhelming force and intimidation, was being systematically dismantled by an enemy that refused to follow the rules of civilized warfare. The humans had lost 18 ships, but they had taken 43 Crethean vessels with them. Worse, every boarding action had succeeded. Human Marines were like plague carriers, spreading through Crethean ships and turning them into burning tombs. "Status report." Thrax roared at his bridge crew. 17 ships have gone silent, Commander." His tactical officer replied with trembling claws. "The humans have captured the destroyer, Deathbringer, and Pinehawk. They're turning our own weapons against us. How many humans could possibly be aboard our ships?" "Our best estimate is 3,000 Marines spread across the fleet." 3,000. Thrax commanded over 500,000 Crethean warriors, yet somehow these few humans were winning. It defied everything he knew about warfare. On the human side, Admiral Cross stood calmly on her bridge despite the fact that the Defiance was taking heavy fire. Her ship shuddered under plasma impacts, but she showed no concern. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Commander Wong, "the Cretheans are trying to regroup. Their remaining heavy ships are forming a defensive sphere around their flagship." "Classic turtle formation," Cross observed. "Klaus, are your people in position?" Sergeant Klaus's voice crackled over the calm from deep inside a captured Crethean cruiser. "Affirmative, Admiral. We've got control of their navigation and weapons systems. Ready to execute Trojan horse on your command." Cross smiled coldly. The Creathians thought they were fighting a conventional space battle. They had no idea they were dealing with a species that had spent centuries perfecting the art of deception. "All captured vessels," Cross commanded, "begin the masquerade." Across the battlefield, a dozen Creathian ships that had supposedly been destroyed suddenly came back to life. But instead of their original crews, they were controlled by human marines who had studied Creathian tactics for months. The ships moved back toward their own fleet, broadcasting damage reports and requests for assistance. War Commander Thrax felt relief as his scattered forces began returning. "Excellent. Regroup with the returning ships. We'll mass our firepower and crush these humans." His tactical officer frowned at his display. "Commander, something feels wrong. Their approach vectors are irregular. They're damaged ships limping home." Thrax snapped. "Prepare to receive them." The moment the captured ships entered the Creathian defensive formation, they opened fire at point-blank range. Plasma cannons that should have been targeting humans instead tore into Creathian armor. Missile launchers loaded with human ordnance turned the tight formation into a killing field. "Betrayal," Thrax screamed as his flagship shook under friendly fire. "How did they turn our ships against us?" His answer came in the form of human voices broadcasting on all Creathian frequencies. Sergeant Klaus's voice echoed across the fleet. "Attention Creathian forces. This is the Human Expeditionary Force. Your ships now belong to us. Surrender immediately or we will demonstrate why humans are called Deathworlders." But Thrax was Creathian. His species did not surrender. "All ships, target the traitor vessels. Destroy them even if we have to die doing it." What followed was a nightmare of friendly fire and confusion. Creathian ships fired on other Creathian ships while human-controlled. Vessels used their innate knowledge of Creathian weak points to devastating effect. The organized war fleet dissolved into a chaotic free-for-all. Captain Foster, whose ship had been presumed destroyed hours earlier, suddenly appeared on Thrax's communication screen. Her face was covered in soot and blood, her uniform torn, but her eyes burned with determination. "War Commander," she said conversationally, "I wanted you to know that we've rigged your flagship's reactor to overload. You have about 10 minutes before it goes critical." "Impossible. My ship is secure." Foster held up a device that looked disturbingly like a Creathian access key. "Your security is based on the assumption that boarding parties can't survive in your atmosphere. Unfortunately for you, humans can survive almost anywhere. We've been inside your ship for 2 hours." Behind her, explosions echoed through the Bloodclaw's corridors. As human marines fought their way toward the bridge, the sound grew closer with each passing moment. High Chancellor Vorth watched from his orbital station as the mighty Creathian war fleet tore itself apart. These humans had done something no military strategist had thought possible. They had turned the enemy's strength into weakness. "Chancellor," his aide Keth said quietly, "I believe we may have misjudged what humanity truly is." Vorth nodded. Slowly, "They are not just another species, are they?" "No, Chancellor. They are apex predators who learned to hunt among the stars." The new Galactic Order battle of Zenthri Prime ended. After 6 hours of the most brutal space combat in galactic history, when the smoke cleared, the mighty Creathian Dominion war fleet was no more. Of 200 ships, only 37 survived to limp away into hyperspace. The humans had lost 29 vessels, but captured or destroyed the rest of the Creathian force. War Commander Thrax's body was found on the bridge of his flagship, apparently killed by human marines who had fought their way through 50 decks of hardened warriors. His final log entry contained a single word: impossible. But the real shock came in the aftermath. Admiral Cross stood before the Galactic Assembly, no longer the unknown representative of a fringe species. Now she commanded the respect given to those who had proven themselves in battle, honored delegates. Cross began, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. "Humanity has fulfilled its obligation to defend Zenthri Prime. However, we've learned some disturbing things about galactic politics." High Chancellor Vorth shifted nervously in his seat. "What do you mean, Admiral?" "The Creathian Dominion didn't attack 30 systems on their own initiative," Cross replied. Activating a holographic display, we found their communication logs. They were paid and equipped by certain civilized species who wanted to eliminate competition and acquire resources without dirtying their own hands. The assembly erupted in shocked whispers. Several delegates began quietly moving toward the exits. The Meridian Collective provided intelligence on target worlds. Cross continued relentlessly. The Altarian fleet sold them advanced weapons. The Corsican war machine trained their officers. You didn't just abandon the victims of Crethean aggression, you enabled it. Ambassador Quillex rose from his floating chair. His multiple arms spread in a gesture of innocence. Admiral, surely you don't believe we would intentionally save it? Cross interrupted. We have the data, financial records, communication intercepts, shipping manifests. You've been running a protection racket on a galactic scale. Senator Tylan from the Vegan Republic. Tried a different approach. Even if what you say is true, what do you propose? You cannot police the entire galaxy with one fleet. Cross smiled that cold predator's smile that had become famous across known space. Senator, you still don't understand what humanity is. We're not just one fleet. We're the advanced scouts. The massive doors of the assembly hall opened, and figures began entering that made every delegate's blood freeze. More humans, dozens of them, representing different military units and government organizations. They moved with the same predatory grace, the same casual confidence of apex predators who had never met anything they couldn't kill. Meet Admiral Chen of the Pacific Fleet, Cross announced as a stern-faced woman took position beside her. Admiral Petrov of the European Command, General Martinez of the Marine Expeditionary Force, Colonel Anderson of Special Operations, and behind them, representatives of the Terran Colonial Authority. The delegate from the hegemony of rings stammered, "How many of you are there?" "Earth's population is 8 billion. Cross replied casually, "Our colonies add another to billion. We can field 1,000 fleets the size of the one that destroyed the Cretheans. But we're not conquerors, we're protectors." She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed a map of local space. Effective immediately, humanity is establishing the Terran Protection Zone. Any species that threatens peaceful worlds will deal with us. Any government that sponsors aggression will be held accountable. Any military force that targets civilians will be eliminated. You cannot simply declare jurisdiction over sovereign space, protested the Corsican delegate, General Martinez, a scarred veteran whose cybernetic arm gleamed under the chamber lights, answered in a voice like grinding metal, "We're not declaring jurisdiction. We're establishing reality. Your species had 1,000 years to create a just galactic order. Instead, you created a system where predators prey on the innocent while the powerful profit from suffering. So we're replacing it," Colonel Anderson added quietly. Humanity spent centuries learning that peace comes through strength, justice through vigilance, and freedom through the willingness to fight for it. High Chancellor Vorth stood slowly, his 6 arms trembling with emotion. "What does this mean? For species like mine, we are not warriors. We cannot defend ourselves." Admiral Cross's expression softened slightly. "Chancellor, it means you never have to fear the Cretheans again, or anyone like them. Humanity offers protection to all peaceful species. We ask only that you contribute to the common defense through resources, technology, or support services. And if we refuse," asked Senator Tylan. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees, as every human present turned their attention to the vegan representative. Cross answered in a voice that carried the weight of ice-cold vacuum, "Senator, you've been selling weapons to slavers and mass murderers for 50 years. Your refusal would be noted." The implication hung in the air like a blade. The galaxy had a new apex predator, and it had very definite ideas about right and wrong. As the assembly dissolved into worried conversations and hurried communications, Admiral Cross gathered her staff. "Deploy the protection fleets," she ordered. "I want human ships in every threatened system within a month. The galaxy is about to learn that some species don't prey on the innocent." "Yes, Mum," her officers replied in unison. High Chancellor Vorth approached her as the chamber emptied. "Admiral, may I ask something?" "Of course, Chancellor. Your species frightens many of us," he admitted. "How do we know you won't become the very thing you claim to oppose?" Cross considered this seriously. Chancellor, humans have a saying, who watches the watchers? We've been asking ourselves that question for centuries. The answer is that we watch each other, and history watches. Us all. We know what we're capable of. That's precisely why we can be trusted with this responsibility. She gestured toward the viewports showing the peaceful streets of Zenthri Prime below. We didn't come to your world to conquer it. We came because someone asked for help. That's what humans do. We help. As news of humanity's declaration spread across the galaxy, the age of predatory empires came to an end. The Terran Protection Zone grew daily as peaceful species requested membership. Pirates found their hunting grounds patrolled by ships crewed by Deathworlders who thought nothing of ramming enemy vessels. Slavers discovered that attacking human-protected worlds resulted in their entire organizations being systematically dismantled. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. When you trust the Deathworlders, you'd better make sure you're on the right side of their moral code. For those who preyed on the innocent, it was indeed their final mistake. For everyone else, it was the beginning of a new age of peace, protected by those who had learned to wage war in the depths of space, just as their ancestors had learned to hunt in the depths of ancient forests. Humanity had come to the stars, and the stars would never be the same.